This is Beneath and Beyond. That's a project that Fiona Cork and I did. It's cards that have questions on them, and I'm going to answer one of the questions. Question: have you ever personally known a psychopath? How did you know? What was it like? And how did it affect you? And this video could be very, very long because I think most of us have known any number of psychopaths in our lives, and they've probably affected us. But I want to talk about one piece of understanding that I had that I used to teach at a prison, and it was Supermax, and one of my students was a really nice guy, and he was really good writer, and we became friends for a while. And he was also a self-described sociopath. He just acknowledged it and was aware enough to be able to say that about himself. And because he was in prison, and that's not a good life, I introduced him to lots of friends and said, you can have correspondences with these people. And the interesting thing is that within a few weeks of those correspondences starting, all of us to whom I had introduced him were at each other's throats. And it wasn't anything, and I confronted him about this. He said, I'm not doing anything. And he wasn't actually doing anything. He wasn't intentionally trying to stir the pot. It's just what he did. And I've noticed this. So one good thing that came out of that was I now see this dynamic in many other sorts of abusive relationships. So this is one of the things that happens, is that narcissists and sociopaths, one of the things that happens when you're in a relationship with them is that they end up occupying space even when they're not there. And they end up messing with all the other relationships. There's like, there will be conflicts emerge. And fortunately, because of my relationship with my friendship with that original guy, I've seen it, and I've been able to sort of nip it earlier. Oh, actually, I have a really good example. That in my late 20s, right around when I was 30, I was living in Spokane, and I had no relationship with my abusive father. I hadn't seen him in years. And one day I was at a softball tournament, and he had looked up somehow where I lived, and he stopped by my house. And the person I was living with at the time was nice to him because she was a nice person, presumably still is. And so she was kind to him, but she quickly realized that she didn't know who he was at first. And then when she figured out who he was, she was still nice to him, but she thought it was very odd that, like, he's only there for 5 minutes. And at one point he said, let me tell you what really happened when he was a child. Like, it only took, literally 5 minutes for this person he had never met before for him to start doing exactly what he did, which is to, say that he was not abusive as a kid, or when I was a kid. So then he leaves. So I get back from my softball tournament, and we drive out to somewhere or another. We're in the car, and I start finding myself getting upset at her that she was nice to him. And this lasts about 30 seconds. And then I realize that what I'm doing is he brought this energy into the relationship. And I remember she was driving the car, I was riding in the passenger seat. And I remember rolling down the window and saying, okay, I'm just going to send this energy out. And probably the people in the house next door to where we were driving, they probably started a fight right after that. But the point is that's one of the things that psychopaths do, is they create conflict wherever they go, and it can ramify out sort of multiple generations from where their actual contacts, and from the people they actually had contact with. And I've seen this process ever since I was able to articulate it in my early 40s, I've seen this process so many times where conflicts are created out of nothing by this sort of force of psychopathy that has come into the room.